Hari Om. We are going to talk about human anatomy and physiology. So, as a yoga teacher, we need to have some basic information, basic but important information about the human body. Because primarily, the practice of yogasana, the practice of yoga, pranayam, yogasanas, the cleansing methods, the effect is primarily on the human body. So we need to know the normal structure and function of the human body so that we can apply our yogic knowledge to the knowledge of the body, the structure of the body, and the function of the body. So, anatomy, the word anatomy means the normal structure, and physiology, it means the normal function of the human body. So in short, we are going to talk about the normal structure and normal function of the human body so that we know the effects, we can explain the various effects, advantages, limitations of yogic practices in correlation with the body. So when we start talking about the anatomy and physiology, obviously the first important question comes to the mind that what is this body made up of? From a medical perspective, from a medical point of view, it is said that the body, the human body, is made up of cells. The basic unit of the human body is a cell. There are billions and billions of cells which form our body, and the functions of the body, the structure of the body, it depends on these billions and billions of cells. So the basic structure of the body, we can say that it is a cell. Now this first cell of the human body, it develops from the union of the male sperm and the female ovum. The male sperm actually is a half cell, and also the female ovum is a half cell. So these two half cells, they come together, they form one complete cell, and that's the first cell of our growing, of our developing human body. Now, the cell has specific functions, the cells are carrying out specific functions, but that one single cell cannot carry out all the functions of the human body. And so, the cells with particular functions, they come together, they form small groups, and these groups of cells, we call them as tissues. Tissues is a very commonly used word. So, tissues is nothing but a group of cells. Now these tissues, they further start working together, they start further helping each other, and then these tissues, they form various organs in the human body. And then these various organs, they function together, forming various systems in our body. So small group of cells, they are called as the tissues. Tissues coming together, functioning together, they form the organs, and the organs, they form the various systems in our body. Just a simple example to understand this. We take an example of the digestive system functioning in our body. Very commonly, we talk about digestion and our digestive system. So it is one of the systems which is functioning in our body, and this system is made up of various organs. Like, as we all know, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the mouth, they are all the organs of the digestive system. And then these organs, in turn, they are made up of tissues, and tissues is a group of cells. So, in short, from a medical point of view, this is how the human body is made up of. But then, ultimately, the basic unit is, of course, the cell, as we mentioned earlier. So, what is a cell? It's a structural and functional unit. Two words, very important. It's a structural unit, and at the same time, it's a functional unit, and it can carry out the functions independently. That's very important. It is dependent on others, but then definitely a cell is a single independent unit which has a particular structure, and at the same time it has a particular function. And as we said earlier, there are billions and billions of cells in our body. So what are the main functions of the cell? First and the most important function of the cell is production of bioenergy. So each and every cell in our body is producing bioenergy, or simply you can call it as energy. But remember that this energy is something different from the pranic energy which is mentioned in the yogic practices or yogic texts. So this is the energy what we are talking of, is the energy which is required for our day-to-day activity. We walk, we talk, we work throughout the day, we exercise. All this, it requires energy, and that energy is produced in the cells. Of course, with the help of the food what we eat and the oxygen which we breathe in. But then utilizing this food and utilizing the oxygen to produce energy is carried out in the cell. So that's the first important function. Second important function we can say is storage. The cells, they can store food substances. They can store glucose, they can store vitamins, they can store minerals, they can store proteins, and yes, of course, they also store fats. So the essential substances, they can be stored in each and every cell so that it can be utilized during crisis, during emergency. So storage is another important function which is common to all the cells in our body. Next important function is multiplication. The cells, they multiply. Number of cells goes on increasing. So initially there is one single cell. That one single cell, it multiplies into two cells. These two cells, they multiply into four. These four cells, they multiply into eight. Eight multiply into 16. The number goes on increasing. So this multiplication of cells is required for the growth of our body, and once the growth is completed, it is required for the maintenance of our body. There is always wear and tear of the cells. So when there is wear and tear of the cells, the damaged cells, the old cells, the cells whose age has already been completed, they need to be replaced by young new cells, and fully functional cells. So, to replace the cells they themselves multiply and form new young fully functional cells. This is the multiplication of the cells required for the maintenance of our body. So all the cells in our body they can multiply except for the nervous system. The nervous system cells or the brain cells, the cells of the nerves, if they are damaged, they cannot be reformed in our body. They cannot be regenerated in our body. So production of bioenergy, storage and multiplication, these are the functions which are common to all the cells in our body. Of course, as I said, multiplication is not possible in the nervous system. But apart from these three functions, the cells they have to perform some specific function according to the location of the cell. So, say for example, the cells of our stomach. The function of the stomach is digestion, to digest the food. And for digestion of food, we require various digestive juices. We require various digestive enzymes. So these digestive juices, digestive enzymes, they are produced by the cells of our stomach. They will not be produced by the cells of your heart, or they will not be produced by the cells of your muscles. So the digestive juice secretion, the digestive juice production will be a specific function for the cells of the stomach. So depending on the position, depending on the location of the cell in our body, the cell has to perform some specific functions. So these are the functions of the cell. Coming to the structure of the cell, in short, there are multiple microstructures in the cell. The cell itself is a microscopic structure. We can't see the cell with our eyes. We need a magnifying microscope to see the cell in our body. And furthermore, inside the cell, there are very microstructures. So just in short, I will mention three important things of the cell. First is the centrally placed, the central round structure called as the nucleus, where the information of the cell is stored. It has all the DNA, the RNA, the chromosomes of the body. So all the information in a coded form is inside the nucleus, inside the chromosomes. Then there is a liquid within the cell, and that liquid is called as the cytoplasm. And in this liquid, in this cytoplasm, various other small micro parts of the cells they are placed in this cytoplasm. And the third structure is the covering of the cell, which is called as a cell membrane. So it covers up the cell, it protects the cell, and of course it differentiates one cell from the other cell, the cell membrane. And the speciality of this cell membrane is it allows the entry of the substances which are required to the cell inside the cell. So from the blood, from the tissue, from the liquids in our body, whatever substances are required by the cell for energy production, they will be absorbed through this cell membrane. So in short, that is or that were the three most important parts of the cell as far as the cell structure is concerned. Now, now depending on the specific function, as I mentioned in the functions of the cell has to perform some specific function. So obviously previously we saw that the cells they form groups called as the tissues form the organs and the organs form the systems. So depending on one minimum common function, our body is divided into various systems. So just to list it, it's the muscular system, then it's the skeletal system or the bones, then it's the digestive system, the breathing system or the respiratory system, the heart and the blood circulation system, the excretory system, that's the system which throws out waste products from our body, say for example the kidney. Then it's the reproductive system, different in men and women, and the two controlling systems, the nervous system and the endocrine system. So these are the various systems which are functional in our body. Now, step by step, we will be learning about one single system at a time. But before we proceed, do remember that we have divided our body into various systems just for our understanding. As such, all the systems, they are dependent on one another for their function. No single system in our body can work independently. It depends on the other system for its function. Just to understand this, one simple example. If you bend your arm in the elbow, simple movement. If you bend your arm in the elbow, just try to find out how many systems are utilized for this movement. You're bending your arm in the elbow. So it's the muscles which are involved. It is the skeleton, the bones or the joint which is involved. Then obviously it will require some energy. So that energy you get it from the cells. The cells produce the energy, but for the production of the energy, the cells, they require food and oxygen. So it will come from the digestive system and the respiratory system. And of course, to carry the oxygen and food substances, blood is required. So the circulatory system comes into action. Now, as it's a movement in the elbow joint, obviously you will also need the nervous system, because the nerves, they will carry the signal. The brain will produce the order and the nerves will carry the signal to the elbow joint that it has to move. So just one simple movement, I just gave this random example to understand that all the functioning in the body is depending on all the systems. It's not that one single system independently works in our body. It is just for our understanding that we will be talking about one system at a time. So first we start with the muscular system, the muscles, the structure and the function of the muscles. This is just an overview about, or this overview of the muscles in our body. So what are these muscles? What are these muscles made up of? Yes, obviously they are made up of proteins, but then these muscles, in a simple term, we can say that these muscles, they are made up of muscle fibers. It's a bundle, it's a group of muscle fibers which comes together and forms the muscle. And these muscle fibers, they are further made up of smaller structure, smaller fibers called as myofibrils and further on. We will not go to that depth of understanding. It's not required, but then the basic thing is that the muscle, any muscle in our body is a bundle, is a group of muscle fibers. Hundreds and thousands of muscle fibers coming together and forming the single muscle in our body. Now these muscle fibers, as I said that the muscle fibers, they come together and form the various muscles in our body. So these muscle fibers, they are of two types, the white muscle fiber and the red muscle fiber. Or sometimes the white fibers, the white muscle fibers, they are called as the fast acting or fast twitch muscle fibers, and the red fibers, they are called as slow acting or slow twitching muscle fibers. So these two different names also help us to understand the function of these two different muscle fibers. So whenever the movement, whenever the action in our body is fast and quick, it is mostly carried out by the white fibers. And whenever the action, whenever the movement is slow and controlled, it is carried out by the red fibers. So when you are having the slow controlled movement, it is mostly the red fibers which are working, and whenever it is a fast movement, it is mostly the white fibers which are controlling the movement. Just to understand this, an example, say when you are running, it's mostly the white fibers which are utilized. And when you are walking, usually it is mostly the red fibers which are utilized. Now, whenever the white fibers are working or whenever the action is fast and quick, the utilization of oxygen is not optimum. Sometimes the oxygen is wasted, you can say. So there is no optimum utilization of oxygen. But when the red fibers are working, they utilize the oxygen to their optimum capacity. Or just for simple understanding of a common man, we can say that the white fibers, they would take up more oxygen and produce less energy. And the red fibers, they would take up less oxygen but comparatively would have more energy. So when the white fibers are working, the heart and the lungs have to overwork. But when the red fibers are working, the heart and the lungs have to work less or they have to work normally. Now, the example which I gave you, when you are running, after running for a short distance, you feel breathless and you feel your heart palpitation or you feel your heartbeats. Why? Because when you are running, it is a fast action and there the white fibers, they are performing more work. So your heart and the lungs have to work more and you feel breathless and you feel your heartbeats. But comparatively, when you are walking, slow walking, gentle walking, the movement is slow, the movement is gentle, and after walking, relatively, the heart and the lungs, they are not working much. You're not feeling breathless. You're not feeling that your heart rate has increased tremendously. That's because when you are walking, it was a slow movement carried out by the red fibers. So its direct application with the yogic practices is whenever you are getting into a yoga posture, whenever you are taking a yoga posture, or whenever you are releasing a yoga posture, the movement should be slow and controlled. Every time you are doing a posture, taking a posture or releasing a posture, the movement should be slow. It should be gentle. It should be under your control. Because in such a movement, the red muscle fibers will be working more. And if the red muscle fibers are working more, the basal metabolic rate BMR will be reduced. Or rather, I would say you can work out your body with minimum input of energy. The energy requirements of the body will be reduced. If you are getting into yoga postures and releasing the yoga postures slowly and gently. So that's the first rule whenever you go for the traditional yoga practices, gentle, slow, controlled movements. No fast movements, no jerky movements, no uncontrolled movements. Moving on next, this is a theoretical part, so we will quickly go through that, is about types of muscles. Till now, we were talking about types of muscle fibers. Now we are mentioning types of muscles. So quickly, there are three types of muscles. The first type is stripped muscles. It is also called as the voluntary muscle or the skeletal muscle. And these muscles mostly they are attached with the bones and the movement is controlled by our will. So if you feel you want to move your hands, you can move your hands. If you feel you want to move your neck, you can move your neck. So voluntary movements you can say. So that's stripped muscles. The second type is unstripped muscles. They're also called as involuntary muscles or smooth muscles. Now the various organs inside our body, they are made up of this unstripped muscles or involuntary muscles. Like for example, various glands, the arteries, various organs like the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine. They're made up of this unstripped muscles, and the movement is not controlled by us. The movement is not controlled by our will. The movement is automatic or the movement is controlled automatically involuntarily. So that's the second type of muscles. And the third type of muscles, they are very specialized muscles, the cardiac muscles or the muscles of our heart. Of course, the muscles of our heart are also involuntary muscles. But the speciality of these cardiac muscles, the heart muscles, is they are never tired. There is no fatigue to the cardiac muscles. The stripped muscles or the unstripped muscles also can get tired. They can have fatigue. But the heart muscles, the cardiac muscles, they never have a fatigue. They never get tired. They can work 24 hours a day. Now, there are some properties of muscles like contraction and relaxation. The muscles, they can contract and relax alternately. Once a muscle contracts, it wants to get back to its original position, and that's called as relaxation. The muscles are also elastic. Then the muscle has a particular tone. The tone of a muscle is slight contraction in the muscle. Even if you say that my muscles are relaxed, I am relaxed, but still there is slight contraction, very, very, very minimal contraction in the muscle, and that's called as the muscle tone. And just a couple of minutes earlier, we mentioned the muscles can get fatigued, they can get tired. That's, in short, the properties of the muscles. Most importantly, what we want to talk is the type of work which is done by the muscles. So there is isotonic type of work and isometric type of work. Now the technical points, they have been mentioned here in the slide, but just to understand that isotonic work, simple thing. Say if you are walking, it's an isotonic work. Some muscles are contracting, some muscles are relaxing. You can see some movements, and then you say that the person is walking. It is isotonic work which is done by the muscles. Isometric. Simple example. If you are standing at one place, say for example, you are standing at one place for 1 minute, you're not moving your legs. You're standing firm on the ground. No movements of the legs, nothing. You are just standing there for 1 minute. The question is, are the muscles of your legs working? Obviously, yes. And what they are doing? They are preventing you from falling down. There is no movement in your legs. There is no contraction, relaxation of the muscles of your legs. You can't see any movement. You can't see any contraction, relaxation. But still, you are maintaining the position. You are standing there. And that type of work is called as isometric. So instead of going into the technical complications for a common man understanding, isotonic work is the work where there are some contractions, relaxations of the muscles. You have visible movements which you can see, and that is isotonic. Isometric, the muscle is working, but you can't see any contractions and relaxation. You can't see any movements, but still the muscles are working. It is isometric. And as you can see, the isometric type of work, once the muscle does the isometric type of work, it can come back to its original position, natural position, quick and fast. And at the same time, isometric type of work can be done with less oxygen. Comparatively, isotonic work requires more oxygen, and coming back to its natural original position or the natural original state of the muscle, it requires more time. Now, what's its significance in the yogasan practice? Yogasan practice mainly involves three parts. Any yogasan, it involves three parts. We are talking at a physical level. So, the first part of a yogasan is taking the position. The next part or the second part of a yogasan is to hold the position. Maybe 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever the time duration. So holding the yogasan position. That's the second part. And the third part is coming out of the yoga position or releasing the yoga position. So to get into a yoga posture and to release the yoga posture, we have to do certain movements. We have to move our hands, we have to move our legs, maybe we have to bend forwards, maybe bend backwards, maybe bend sideways. So there are certain movements which are done to get into a yogasan position and to release the yogasan position. So at that time, our muscles are working isotonically. Simple to understand, visible movements, contraction, relaxations. So the muscles are working isotonically. And obviously, during that time, you will slightly require more oxygen. But the main part of a yogasan is to hold the position, hold and maintain the position, become steady in the position. So holding the position, maintaining the position, being steady in the position, being comfortable in the position is a yogasan. So once you are holding the position, once you are steady in the position, there are no movements, there is no contraction or relaxation, and at that time your muscles are working isometrically. Whatever time duration, 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, or even 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever time duration you are holding the position, during that time duration, the muscles are working isometrically, and during that time, the muscles are consuming less energy, less oxygen. So again, I repeat, the main part of any yoga posture is to hold and maintain the posture and steadily maintain the posture. Of course, you should be also comfortable in that posture. So yogasan mainly helps your muscles to work isometrically with less oxygen consumption, less energy consumption. And also, when you are getting into the position and releasing the position, those movements, they should be slow, they should be controlled, they should be gentle. We already mentioned that. So if getting into the position and releasing the position is slow, controlled, and gentle, the red fibers are working and they are working more efficiently with efficient utilization of oxygen. So at a muscular level, when you are doing yogasan, when you are doing yoga postures at a muscular level, you're doing them slowly and gently. They are holding the postures, and all these things happens with the minimum input of oxygen, or you can say it's the optimum utilization of oxygen. You're not wasting the oxygen at all. You're optimizing the use. You're using it properly, and also the requirement is less. And the effect of all these things is slowing down or reducing your basal metabolic rate. That's the aim of yogic practices. Or, as I said earlier, minimizing the energy consumption but increasing the output. So, that is possible if you practice the yogasan in the way we discussed right now. So, that was the significance of the traditional way of practicing yoga, and we tried to explain it in relation with the muscles, the working of the muscles during yogasan practice. So for the timing, this is all what I have to say in relation to the muscular system and the yogic practices. Hari Om.